What happens when you get a married couple that quit their jobs to pursue their dreams?
You get us, the hassle of hair.
I'm Jesse the Hassle Diaz, a fighter out of Strike Fitness in Los Banos, California. My dream is to one day have at least one pro MMA fight and pro Muay Thai fight.
Hi, I'm Cal, a licensed cosmetologist pursuing my dreams into finishing and opening up my mobile salon.
Follow us on our journey as we search for people that went after their dreams
And became the character in their own movie.
Are you currently interested in buying a house in Los Banos? Either you live here or you're thinking about moving to this wonderful city? Well, our sponsor, Diego Velasquez, is one of the best realtors in town and one of the best realtors I know. Go ahead and give him a call at 209-704-2570. That's 209-704-2570. And if you do call him, make sure to mention the hassle of hair. Thank you guys. Thank you for supporting. Remember, support those that support us. Now back to the episode. Sorry, I gotta connect. I gotta connect the audio to the video.
Gotcha.
Bring it a little bit closer to you.
Right there?
Yeah, right there. Yeah.
Okay.
Just like your last night.
It was a lot closer last night.
Welcome back to the Hassle of Hair, episode 93. We have EJ Erreca. He's a Los Banos native. I met him at the gym. Through this whole entire time at the gym, through the pandemic or whatever you want to call it, I met EJ. He's been like I want to say an inspiration to me with training and coaching, mainly because he came in full of energy, wanting to learn. And he is a recovering addict. He is a business owner in Los Banos, California, and just an awesome dude. I shouldn't even say recovering addict because he's just EJ, right? But yeah, EJ, thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
Before we press record, you're talking about Basque dancing.
Oh, Basque. Yeah. So I'm Basque. That's my culture, right? So
Can you explain what Basque is? Because a lot of people don't understand that that's an actual.
Well, so the Basque culture sits right in between. It's right in between Spain and France, right? So we don't really have our own country. They call it the Basque country, but it's technically not a country. So people would refer to themselves as Spanish Basque or French Basque, right? So we're like an indigenous people to Europe, right? We have no derivative from our language. So it doesn't come from like Latin or where all the traditional languages. We're kind of like a mysterious people, right? Yeah. So like it's like we got heavy pride in being Basque. So.
But for some reason, all the Basque people came to Los Banos.
No, we're all over the place, dude. We're all over the place.
But Los Banos is known for Basque people, right?
Well, we have Woolgrowers Restaurant, which when you look at it, it says Woolgrowers Restaurant and Hotel, right? Because it wasn't only a restaurant; it was also a hotel for immigrant families who came over from the Basque country. So before you get on your feet, you can go live at the Woolgrowers. So it's kind of like a lightweight embassy, I guess you can call it, where people would just come, right? So people can come and get started, right? And they live there and whatnot. So in my family, like my great-grandmother started the dance group. So my mother carried on the tradition and took over the Basque dancing group. So we're always, heavily immersed. We'd go to all the Basque festivals all over the place, dance, and then they do all traditional stuff like dog trials where they train the dogs to go round up the sheep, and they do like wood chopping, weight carrying competitions.
Wait, when was this?
It's every year at
it's now?
Yeah, every year at the fairgrounds. So they do. My kids dance. It's cool. It's a good event. It's like you go there. They have a big lunch. They have a dance presentation. They do all these cultural games. And basically, it's a big fucking drinking festival, right? Like. People go there to get fucked up. I can cuss, right?
Yeah, you're good.
Good. So people go there and so that's like my culture, right? Is like a heavy drinking culture. Like you drink doing everything, right? So that's kind of like where like a lot of my stuff, like with addiction, right? Like as far as like my family and the way we were raised and things like that, like there was always drinking around. So that was just kind of a normal thing. But yeah, that's kind of like that. Not all bass people are alcoholics, right? Or addicts, right?
Yeah.
But they're, it's part of the culture, right? Like my grandfather always talks about being weaned off the breast on wine. Right. So, but if you asked him, he didn't have a drinking problem, right? So,
Never mind. I was gonna say something about my. Never mind. Yeah. Okay.
You can incriminate your grandparents too if you want.
No. But go back to Go back to the fairground thing.
Yeah.
So they have like a weightlifting contest.
Well, it's like a farmer's carry.
Yeah.
Right. So they mark them off. I think it's 100 feet or 100. Yeah, it's 100 feet. Right. They have stakes in the ground, and it's big. I think they weigh like 115 pounds a piece. They're just these big metal cylinders with rebar handles. Yeah. So you just pick them up and you farmers carry, around the stakes as many times as you can, right? And so whoever signs up will go. Like my buddy's dad, right? And he's like he's not like a big jack dude or anything like this. He's like farmer strength. He's straight from the old country, like super thick Basque accent, right? And this dude would just run it every year. Like weightlifters would show up, like Dick's gym guys, like just yoked and try and beat him. And he ran this thing for like 10 years, right? He ran the gauntlet. Nobody could beat him. Like dudes would show up to try and beat this dude, right? And they would just like I'm talking about these guys in these tank tops and there's veins everywhere and just super jacked, right? They'd show up. And this dude Amador would just smoke him every year. He would go last, right? And these guys would carry like some insane distance and just drop it and think they had it. Fuck yeah, I got this, right? And then Amador would come and just beat him by like 10 feet or something. And just drop him.
It's at the fairgrounds?
Yeah, the third Sunday in May every year. All right, they're not going to have it this year again because,
obviously.
The COVID ruined everything. COVID ruined everything fun.
It's crazy because I've been here 7 years.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that once.
Well, you'll hear like you could hear it from your house where you live right now. You'll hear the accordions and everything because they play accordion and everything else. You'll hear it. You know, you just never probably thought to go there because it's not like a big like you don't go by there and like, oh my God, what's going on over here? Yeah. You know, it's really cool. Like if you've never been, like the lunch is good. The people are friendly. Go have some cocktails and have a good time. They welcome everybody. Yeah. Everybody's welcome. So it's something to check out. So like, I'll make sure to invite you next time.
What's a Basque accent like?
It sounds like you got something in your fucking mouth when you're talking.
like Stipe Miocic?
No, it sounds something like this. No, it's like that's more of like Francis Ngannou, right? I could do it, but it's not coming to me right now. It basically sounds like you got food in your mouth and you're trying to talk, right? But yeah, it's like well, it just depends on what part you're from too, because like a lot of them are like heavy French influence, right? So they have more of a French, and then a lot of them are really Spanish too. So you have an in between. But it kind of sounds like this, like that kind of thing, right? I'm not doing it justice, dude. I can hear my friend's dad right now in my ear, and
it's not coming out.
Yeah,
it's so crazy because Los Banos has there's mainly just Portuguese and Basque.
Yeah.
Right?
Portuguese, Basque, Italian, and Mexican is Los Banos, basically. Yeah. And that's like I'm Portuguese, Basque, and Italian. The only thing I'm missing is if I had some Mexican in me, I'd be like the perfect Los Banos mix, right? But yeah.
And it's cool to know you, to get to know you because your family's Los Banos blood, right?
Yeah. No, we've been here. I think 4 generations. So we've had that flower shop in our family for 3 generations.
What's the flower shop called?
Los Banos Flower Shop and gifts, right? www.losbanosflowers.com. Yeah. No. So my grandma started it in 1946, and my grandfather was working at the bank. And it's actually a really cool story because my grandmother's the one that started the business. And back then, women didn't start businesses, right? People were like, oh, you're crazy, right? You just need to stay home and have children and da-da-da. And so they built the front part of that shop just like no wall, just like a open building. just in case that they didn't make it, they could turn into the house and they can live there. And so, 70 some odd years later, we're still there, and she's really successful. She was the president of Seroptimus International, which is like a women's, like she would go to different countries and speak in front of women about
because
like
of
women's
what
issues.
she did in Los Banos?
Well, because of that, and she was heavy into service work, right? So she would, Seroptimus is basically an organization that's all women in business, right? Like basically like women's, empowerment, right? Like, and so she would, she was the international president. Like she went up that high, and she knew all these politicians, she would go walk the streets for them, like she was friends with like all these dirty politicians like Gary Condit and all these people, right? And and like when JFK came to Los Banos, right? She was like right front and center, videotaping.
Wait, he came to Los Banos?
Yeah, he broke ground for the dam out there during his
Holy
presidency.
shit.
Yeah, so like she was one of those like overachiever, super involved people, right? Yeah. And so yeah, she was just an interesting woman. Even before that whole block that the flower shop's on, my family, I guess my great grandfather owned that block, and he had a trucking yard out of there. And their family, my grandfather's family, like 2 other families, lived in the little house that was next door to the flower shop, and that's where they all grew up.
That's so. Yeah. It's so crazy to think that JFK came over here, and I don't realize how big that dam is for California.
Yeah.
That's a main source of water for LA, right?
Yeah, and then they sell it to Las Vegas.
So
then the farmers starve, right? Don't make sense.
So if you're not familiar where we live in Los Banos, California, and we're in Central Valley, and there's a dam right next to us, but that dam's water doesn't go to us.
No,
right?
They sold it to LA, and then from what I understand, LA turned around and sold it to Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of that water even goes out of state. From what I understand, I could be wrong. This is on video, so I can't fool Jesse right now with my. You might want to Google that.
Yeah. we don't have a producer looking up shit right now.
Hey Jesse, you want to look that up?
That's out of budget.
Or what's yeah.
But no, it's funny because the way you say Los Banos is different from how I say Los Banos.
Because you're not from Las Banos.
I know. So the way you say it. Los Banos, I can't. Oh my God, how do you say it?
Los Banos.
Los Banos, Jesus. But I say Los Banos.
Yeah.
And it's like, and the first thing, that's one of the first things when I first got to Los Banos, when I worked at Starbucks, was that they would always say, "Oh, you're not from here because you don't say Los Banos.
Yeah, you're not from Los Banos."
yeah. It was right away. It's such a trippy thing, and. How was it like growing up here before you grew up before Walmart, before
Yeah,
Target?
I mean, I didn't know any different. So I mean, it like we were just talking about before you started taping. This was all fields when I grew up, right?
Yeah.
So Los Banos was really small. I mean, it was nice. Like from my perspective, my family was pretty well known here. So for a lot of people, I'm sure it wasn't that nice though. As I grow up and I learn more information about how people live and think and what they do and how they act. In a lot of ways, Los Banos is kind of a backwards place still. There's a lot of like backwards thinking in Los Banos. My wife just made a comment today when we walked into Target, about a kid that was working up front, 15-year-old kid, and people were calling Target and complaining about him because he looked too gangster to be working. He's a 15-year-old kid with a job, right? Give the guy a break, right? But like those are the kind of people that there's still a lot of that. I guess you could say old thinking, or sick thinking, But I mean, for me, it was great. I mean, I didn't have the opportunities that a lot of kids might have growing up in a bigger city, right? I mean, it's pretty isolated. There's not a lot of stuff to do. Like, I mean, even going all the way through high school, we didn't have a movie theater. Yeah. So, it was good. I mean, I like the way I think about it, like we always talk about like a sample size of one, right? Like until I know other people's story, everything that I went through as a kid was completely normal. Cause that's all I had, right? I didn't have anything to compare it to, right? Like, and that's the funny thing, like getting into recovery, right? What I learned is a lot of things that I thought were normal aren't necessarily normal, right? Yeah. Like the way I was raised, the experiences I had, the way I was raised, the experiences I had, the way I was raised, the experiences I had, the way I was raised, the experiences I had, the way I was raised, the experiences I had, the way I was raised, the experiences I had, the way I was raised, the experiences I had, the way I was raised, the experiences I had, the way I was raised, the experiences I had, the way I was raised, the experiences I had, the way I was raised, the experiences I had, the way I was raised, the experiences I had, the way I was raised, the experiences I had, the way I was raised, the experiences I had, the way I was raised, the experiences I had, the way I was raised, the experiences I had, the way I was raised, the experiences I had, the way I was raised, the experiences I had, the way I was raised, the experiences I had, the way I was raised, the experiences I had, the way I was raised, the experiences I had, the way I was raised, the experiences I had, the way I was raised, the experiences I had, the way I was raised, the exp not normal, right? Like a lot of people, you know, when you unpack a lot of it, there's a lot of trauma in there. But to me, that's just how it was,
Life
right?
was, yeah.
You know,
I was just talking to Jaden, the guest we had on before you, that I'm really realizing that kind of stuff too when I'm getting older. And one of the things is that my dad used to sit me down when I used to do something wrong. My dad used to sit me down and have me sit for like 2 hours, you know what I mean? And just listen to him for. I'm not when I say 2 hours, EJ, it was 2 hours. Like, and I would have to sit like this. I couldn't look off. I would have to look him in the eye for 2 hours with this dude, who was my dad. And I look back on it, and I'm telling Jaden about it, and I was like, man, that wasn't normal.
well, he must have had a lot of shit to say. That's it.
And it's crazy because he did it. It was all repetitive. But looking back at it, and that sounded like that song, looking back at it. But no. But it helped me with this, even though that was trauma. It helped me with doing this podcast and listening to people and being able to hear them out. But at the same time, that was trauma.
Yeah.
Right? It was some crazy shit.
Yeah. It's kind of weird, like brainwashing almost, right?
Yeah. And, but no, you mentioned you're a recovering addict. What were you recovering from?
Life.
How did you start? Like,
yeah, that's like a loaded question, right? Like, how did I start? I mean, my first drug was probably a cigarette when I was like 8 years old, right? I was a foreign exchange student, right? And that was probably the first thing I did that actually like physically changed the way I felt, right? But I mean, I basically started, so like when I think about it, like when my parents had my sister, they were like 17 and 18, and then I came around 2 years later, right? And so they had this house, and you know, all their friends were like college age, and so everybody would party at the house, right, and things like that. So, you know, what I learned to do is, like, usually the person that's the loudest gets the most attention, right? And usually the person that's the loudest is probably like the most fucked up, right? Yeah. And so, you know, like what you see as cool when you're young and how to get attention, right? And as a kid with younger parents, you know, like my parents, like I don't want to like ever get it twisted. Like my parents love the shit out of me, both of them, right? But like they're young kids, you know, and so all this stuff is going on around you, and you can't really process it, and all you want is their attention, right? But what had their attention was the partying and all these things. So these things were like glorified when I was young, right? Yeah. And it seems like a lot of my character issues or a lot of my like using was more related around being seen, right? Or wanting to hang out with people or be socially acceptable. And so, I mean, like my using started with alcohol, like most people, right? You know, you drink a little bit here and there. I remember the first time I hit weed was actually at my parents. My parents' house is a weird dynamic too. Like people that were like younger than my parents, but like older than my oldest sister would like come to my parents' house to fucking party, right? Like it was a safe haven to like go smoke weed and shit like that. It was really weird, right? Like thinking back at it, like these people had no business there. Like my sister's a freshman. These people are like seniors, and they're just coming over to my parents' house to get high. Not even necessarily to hang out with my sister, right? Yeah. Hang out with the neighbor girl, but at my parents' house, right? So all these people would play ping pong and hang out in my backyard and get high. Oops, sorry about that.
What is that?
That's that alarm that goes off. I took a nap one day and I set an alarm and I never turned it off.
I do the same thing.
So, but yeah, so like that was the first time that I had ever gotten high, right? And then, you know, like going into like my junior high years, you know, I made a whole new group of friends, you know, and those were the ones that I wanted to hang out with were the ones that were using, you know, for some reason, that's what was attractive to me, you know.
But in Los Banos, there wasn't really much to do but sports, but sports and that, right?
Sports and party, right? Yeah. And so I started hanging out with these kids, and I was still like doing all the right stuff, but like we were getting high, like we'd meet up at a friend's house before 7th grade, and we'd hotbox a truck and show up. We were little ass kids, you know. I got a daughter that age right now, you know, and that's you know, and so that was the progression of things, right? And from then I was just experiment, and then it was like sports, right? And then a sports injury, led to like Vicodin use, and that was the beginning of addiction, right? I mean, I believe that I was born, with the disease of addiction, right? It was in me, but it didn't manifest, in a destructive way until like high school, right? Until I started with the opiates, and then even further on, found the Oxycontin and things like that.
Yeah.
And then it takes over your life, right? It makes everything unmanageable. Life becomes, it's the drug first and everything else second.
When you're fully into it, right? Like, do you know that you're addicted?
No. And that's the crazy thing about like addiction in general. Like, what I learned when I came to the rooms, like the first time I came to the rooms, I was a full blown, I was snorting 80 milligram Oxycontins, like multiple a day, right? Which is basically pure synthetic heroin, right? Right. And I didn't know what I was doing, right?
Yeah.
Like I was ignorant to the fact. Yeah. It was like God gave you a warm hug, right? Like that's like, it's really hard to like explain like how good it feels. Right. Yeah. And so, it was, I'm trying to think. I just lost my train of thought.
Did you know that you were addicted?
No, I didn't know I was an addict, right?
Yeah.
Like I thought an addict was sitting there with a needle sticking out of their arm, right? Or toothless, living under a bridge, right? I didn't know that addicts came in all shapes and sizes. Like the disease of addiction doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care if you're rich, poor, fat, skinny, ugly, pretty, famous, unknown. It doesn't care, right? And so all I knew is I kept, what we would do, right? I had a buddy, and he worked for a pharmacy in town. He used to deliver all the prescriptions around town. So he would deliver all these pills to people, and then we'd go back later in the day and buy them all up, right? And and he would get all the good stuff, right? And so, I would run out periodically, and I'd get fucking sick. I was going through withdrawals. And I didn't even know I was going through withdrawals, right? Yeah. And like about the third or fourth time, like I realized I had a fucking problem, right? And this was years and years. I was probably like in my early 20s. And I reached out to my parents, and I'm like, dude, I got a problem, right? I can't stop fucking using these drugs, and I'm getting sick. Yeah. I think I'm going through withdrawal.
Were you skinny at the time?
No, I was.
You showed me a picture where you're skinny.
Yeah, that was off my second run.
Okay.
This was like the first run, and and so they locked me in a room for like 5 days, right? Not like locked me in, like don't come out, but they gave me a safe place to come down, right? And I came down, and I didn't know. I knew I had a fucking problem, but I didn't know what to do about it, right? And so I asked. They gave me the help. They reached out. They found some 12-step meetings, right? A friend of mine found these meetings and said, this is the best I got for you, right? And I didn't know that I was being introduced to the thing that would save my life, later on down the road, right? And so I showed up to these meetings, I was a fucking mess, I was crying, right? Because when you're using like everything, all that trauma, everything you're feeling, everything's just completely suppressed, right? And you get clean and everything turns on at once, right? And then you have all these emotions you don't know what to do with. You fucked your life up, even though I was only 24. I still, right? Like, oh. So I showed up to the meeting, a mess, all the people in there were older than me. I couldn't relate. I couldn't identify. I found a guy that was way bigger than me, and he looked like he could beat my ass. So I asked him, will you be my sponsor, right? And the dude.
And what's a sponsor? For people that don't know, a sponsor is somebody that just...
They walk you through the 12 steps of recovery, basically, right? That's what a sponsor does. And that's basically their only job, right? Yeah. But it becomes more than that. Like when you share your deepest, darkest, like intimate secrets with this person, you're confiding in them.
Are they're recovering addicts as well, right?
Yeah. So it's like basically peer-to-peer counseling, right? Yeah. It's basically what recovery is. Nobody understands an addict like an addict, right? Yeah. Like nobody understands like what you go through as a fighter like another fighter who's walked that experience, right? Or like a war veteran, And so, so you can identify with this person. There's nothing I'm going to tell him that he hasn't heard or seen before, and it's just somebody that's going to love you unconditionally no matter what, right? And that's the thing is is like a lot of times when you come into the rooms, what stops you from feeling human is the shame and the guilt of all the things that you've done behind your addiction, right? It's not only the drug use, it's all the weird character stuff that comes along with it, right?
Yeah, to get that fix,
because you're just hollow, right? And you'll feel that space with drugs, women, whatever, people, rob, steal, lie, cheat, manipulate, do whatever they can to get that fix, right? And I wasn't any different, and that fix can come in a lot of different, like people that are clean, they fix with porn, they fix with food, they fix with working out, right? Yeah, Muay Thai is my new fucking drug. I look around, I'm like, what the fuck am I doing in here? Sometimes I'm like, I don't know, I love it though, right?
Like,
Yeah. And that's just, and that's my addictive behavior, right? Like that's why I'll show up every morning at 5:30 in the morning, and if I have open time in the evening, I'll show up and do 2 classes at night, because that's like that obsessive compulsive, and that's the thing. The core of the disease of addiction is, like it says it in our basic text, which is basically like our Bible, right? It's the obsession, which is the mental part of it, the compulsion, which is the physical part of it, and then the complete self-centeredness, right? Like it's like planting that mustard seed is the obsession. Like I get a thought, right? And I start thinking about it, and then it becomes an obsession. I think about something in the morning. I don't get that thought out or pray it away or give it to God. By noon, it's become full-blown obsession, right? And then I can't stop the compulsion. That would be the physical act of acting out on that thought, right? Yeah. And then once that takes over, the self-centeredness kicks in, and I don't think about anything except for doing that fucking thing, right? Yeah. And then it's done, and then I'm full of shame and guilt, right? The same disease that tells me, EJ, it's okay to fucking get loaded, right? As soon as I'm done getting loaded, it'll tell me, EJ, you piece of shit. Why the fuck did you get loaded? Kill yourself, right? Yeah. Like it's the same, it's.
I feel the same way when I eat cake.
And that's it, right? Yeah. And that's it, right? Yeah. I mean, it's that little voice in your head that just wants to destroy you all the time, right? Yeah. Like that Metallica album, with it hardwired to self-destruct, right?
I love that. A lot of people didn't like it. I love that fucking album.
Yeah, I mean, it tells my life story, right? Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of it in a nutshell. I mean, there's so much more to it, and there's so many people that could explain it so much better than I could. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it takes you to places that you never thought you would be, right? Like I was doing things that were against my moral standards, right? I was doing things to jeopardize my life and hurt all the people that I love the most in spite of myself, yeah. And that's a scary place to be.
It's crazy because I think I had the same thing. I'm addicted to stuff. Yeah. Right? Bad. Like I only do this in my house because I got addicted to it. Right? Yeah. When I first started, I had nothing right here. I literally spent hours and hours. I've said this plenty of times on the podcast. I dove into it, addicted, right? And looking back at my life when I was younger, every time I got a bad addiction, for some reason I told myself, like, that's a bad addiction. I just knew, like, when I was with the girl who wasn't going anywhere with her life, I knew it was a bad addiction. I just left her, right? Any drug that I did, I was like, oh, this is going to send me down a bad rabbit hole. But then when it came to, like, martial arts, and when it came to even with books, I dove into plenty, like one author, I dive into that one author, get addicted to his writing. And it's just, I always think, I was like, what? And one thing that changed, you talking about it, one thing that changed it for you was your injury. Yeah. Yeah. Me, I didn't have an injury. Looking back, like, I don't take any painkillers because I know if I do, I'll get addicted. I just know my mindset, right? Because like earlier, I'll say it, like I got addicted to marijuana, right? Pretty bad. I thought I wasn't addicted, but I was doing it every day. I was high all the time, and I was 29 years old. This is like last year. I'm 29 years old. My daughter's just looking at me. Is like, man, and I could tell she knew I was high. And I never thought you could get addicted to marijuana, but looking back at it, I was like, oh man, I was I was addicted for sure.
There's a piece of chocolate cake happening. I was like, what? I'm like, what are you looking at?
But it wasn't a hard drug, but it's still like I have that tendency, and I could lose if I find something I really like and it's bad. I could lose myself quick.
Well, don't try heroin. That's all I can tell. That's all I can tell you, right?
Yeah.
And that's what, like, I mean, I think probably most of the greatest people in society have those addictive tendencies. They just find other places to funnel them, right? Like Michael Jordan's definitely a fucking addict. You know what I'm saying? Like he just found basketball, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing is like most of my like character defects sometimes are just a character asset ran wild, right? Like once I got hurt and I couldn't play sports, like I didn't have anywhere to channel that energy, right? You know, and I wasn't the greatest athlete in the world, you know, but I always participated and I always played hard, you know. And the thing is once I lost that, like I just got high, you know, and that was it, you know. And I found a bunch of other guys that like to get high too, and that's what we did, you know. And some of them aren't on this earth anymore, and other ones are in bad places. You know, a couple of them made it out, but you know that's it. You know, birds of a feather flock together. You know, and you find your group, and you know it's funny. I was sitting next to the guy I was sitting next to the other day in Muay Thai. He brought his son in. We used to run together. You know, we went to elementary school together, and we couldn't look more different. He ran with all the Northerners. We were like kind of like.
You ran with the Bosques.
Yeah, the Boscos. Ran with the Boscos. But we couldn't, you know, but we have, you know, so much in common. Like, we have so much, like, mutual life experience. He's got, like, 5 years clean now. You know, he made it out, too, you know. But, yeah, I mean, it's, you know, I mean, yeah, life is funny that way, man. Like, honestly, it's a miracle that I'm here today. You know, and I take not that like that I'm sitting. Well, I'm sitting here in any capacity, right? But it's just a miracle I'm fucking alive. You know, at this point with all the shit that I did and what I put in my body. You know, I don't take it for granted, man. I try and that's why I try and push as hard as I can every day. You know, I do the most I can with my kids. You know, I try to be the best father I can be. I owe that to them. I try and be the best significant other I can be. Try to be the best friend and confidant, you know, because I'm lucky, like to have unconditional relationships. Like I would consider even though you get paid to be at the gym and do all these things, I consider that like an unconditional relationship, right? That means there's no conditions placed on it. Like you're not hanging out with me because I got a bag of dope in my pocket, right? Our relationship's not based on a condition like that, right? Or what you can get from me or what I can get from you. You know, like I have actual friendships today, you know, and for me that's new, you know, like I didn't really fucking associate with anybody from the time that I was probably 12 or 13 on, unless there was a condition to it, right? Like unless, you know, you had something for me, I had something for you. We were going to make some money off this, make some money off of that. I was going to sleep with you, whatever it was, right? Like all my relationships were conditional, right?
But that doesn't just go for drugs or addiction. That's sometimes there's people like with business. Yeah. Like if you're a business savvy person, sometimes all your relationships are just business.
Yeah, when that's a lonely ass person, right? You know.
And I'm realizing that it's funny because I was literally just thinking about this because my buddy was on a podcast who I really am cool with. Like his name's Danny. He owns a clothing brand. And then I started thinking about my friends that are actually my friends. Like you're somebody that I barely met and I consider a friend. But I'm trying to think of my other like long-term friends. And there's not that many of people that I call on a regular and say, hey, how's it going? And lately my friendships have been transactional. How do you say it?
Conditional.
Yeah, conditional. And it's like, man, because my wife always, she always like, I always tell her, I was like, man, I'm doing all this stuff, but I'm lonely.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like,
oh yeah.
And and she doesn't understand it. It's like, well, look at all the people you're around. How are you lonely? And you saying that made me freaking realize like a lot of my relationships are transactional, conditional.
Yeah.
And it felt good because I called my other buddy who lives in San Jose. He's a musician. I call him up and it just felt good.
Yeah.
To just call somebody that didn't didn't need me, didn't nothing. And I realized you put it together for me right now. And another thing you said was that feathers flock together.
Yeah, birds of a feather flock together, right?
I'm finding myself around a bunch of addicts.
Maybe God's trying to tell you something.
Recovering addicts.
Yeah.
Like I've over the past year, it's a bunch of like all my new friends are recovering addicts.
Yeah.
And that might be telling me something, like that I have that personality or something. I think I told you that before.
Yeah, we've talked about it. And that's the cool thing, like is learning how to live life open, right? You learn to meet people and identify, right? Like that's being able to see yourself in somebody else. It's like a spiritual principle, right? And like he did it so I don't have to do it, right? And the only way to grow is to be able to learn from each other and share openly, right? And I think that's what like that fight gym does more than anything, because that's like my second fellowship, right? Because for the longest time I could only relate to a lot of people in Narcotics Anonymous, right? And then I found that place and I love it because I'm there, dude. Everybody's thinking the same way. Everybody's chasing a goal. Like I was saying, birds of a feather flock together, right? And the same thing, if you hang out with 3 broke motherfuckers, there's going to be 4 pretty soon, right? And that's, you have to put yourself around like-minded people, or people that you're striving to be like, because you are, what you hang out with, right?
Let me ask you something. Then it's pretty hard. How hard is it having to help somebody then? Like, because you're in the world of AA and meetings, and you're telling yourself right now, you just said you have to keep yourself around like-minded people who are doing good for themselves.
Yeah.
But then in your world, you're kind of have to backtrack for these people that are not doing good for themselves.
Yeah. Well, that's what narcotics. Now, I'm not supposed to really promote, right? Yeah. Like I don't speak for Narcotics Anonymous. I'm like a member of Narcotics Anonymous, right? Like it saved my life. But so like the way it works, right, is you only get to keep what you have by giving it away to somebody else, right? And so that's what was done for me. I walked in there, and the guy that sponsored me a long, long time ago, he sponsors me again today, like 14 years later through that process, right? Yeah. But like. So my disease is self-centered by nature, right? Self-seeking, self-hating sometimes, right? So if I'm not doing something for somebody else, it's that much easier for me to fall back into my disease, of selfishness, right? Yeah. And so like I got into this situation the other day where I was at a meeting, and I ended up, this guy asked me for a ride, to where he was sleeping. He didn't have a place to sleep at the time. And he's told me it was in one place. I ended up taking this dude all the way out to the fucking Mission, right? In Santanella. And so it's like, and so sometimes like a character asset or a character defect is a character asset, around wild. Like I ended up doing too much for this guy, right? But I mean, like I'll answer my phone at any time of the night, for a recovering addict who wants help, right? And unfortunately, you got to deal with so many people that don't really. It's like the fight gym, right? Everybody walks in there and wants to be a fighter, right? Yeah. Everybody that walks into Narcotics Anonymous wants to get clean, right? But not everybody at the fight gym is willing to put the work in to become a fighter, right? Yeah. And the same thing at NA. Not everybody in there is willing to put the work in to want to get clean, right? But it's worth it for that one that does, right? And that's kind of why you do that, right? You and I honestly stay there to save my own ass, right? It's like the most selfish / selfless thing you could possibly do, and that's the same thing like coaching. I'm sure you get so frustrated with people sometimes because everybody wants to be a fighter. Yeah. Shit, I'm 38. I want to be a fighter, and then common sense kicks in and tells me I'm 38. I'm not a fighter, right? Yeah. But that's the mentality. Like everybody wants something, but sometimes it's too fucking hard, and for the one guy it works for, it's worth it, right? Like my sponsor, God knows how many dudes that guy sponsors. He's been clean 22 years. He's been around, man, and barely in, and he continues to do the same thing, and he's clean today, so I see what he does, and that's what I want to aspire to be. He's my sponsor because I see a lot of things in his life that I want for myself, right? And that's how you kind of pick the guy, I think God picked him for me, honestly. Yeah. But, you know, like the things that I see in him that I want, like he thinks before he talks. When he speaks, people listen, right? He's well respected, you know, well thought out, you know, caring individual, you know, and he's been there. Dude, that dude's done more for me than I can even begin to, you know. I try not to kiss his ass too much, right? I don't put him on a pedestal because human beings always disappoint other human beings, you know, but you know, you only find that shit, you know, in places like that. And honestly, like that's what attracts me to the gym as well. You know, the tightest bonds are made through hardship, right? So when people are suffering together, you know, like they seem to bond like no other, you know. But I don't even know if I have a tendency, like if you ask me a question, I just go off on a tangent and start talking,
I'm
right?
the same way. No, see, I was about to say something, but I forgot what I was going to say. Damn it. God damn it. That's brain trauma. But it's such a crazy thing because I meet people that have been, I don't want to say they've been given a good life, but they've had a good life their whole entire life. Like they've had it. It's hard to say. It's not that they had it easy, but they've never been through hardship. They've never been through tribulations, right? And usually those people I can't be around. You know what I mean? I can't be around them. Like it's just like people that have never gone through something hard. And I sit there and I'm like, man, you've never seen the dark side of life. Yeah. You know? And and it just pushes me away from people. That's why like I said the other day, I told somebody, I'm probably the most humble person you ever meet. And I was like, that doesn't sound good at all. But I don't think humble is the right word. It's just, I think I'm willing to talk to anybody. Yeah. No matter if you're poor, rich, whatever. But the one person I can't get along with is the people that have never been through hardship.
When like my life like wasn't set up to be super hard. Like there were certain circumstances that I say led to certain things in my life, but like I was raised by good people, right? Like in a lot of the morals that are instilled in me, like I had like 7 grandparents when I was alive, great grandparents. Yeah. One of my mom's parents were divorced and remarried, so I had all of these older wise people, right? But I was raised by these young crazy people, right? So I had a lot of good morals instilled in me. I had a lot of advantages growing up that a lot of people didn't have. Like I was just known enough to be the poor kid amongst the rich kids, right? Like I was a middle class kid. So, but like I was well known, so I get to hang out with all these kids that had it just that much better, right? Yeah. So I wasn't like dirt poor or anything growing up. Everything that, you know, I never went hungry. The lights were always on. The house was always warm, right? Yeah. You know, some people had a lot worse than me. I created my own fucking misery, right? And that's what I learned like through the process of recovery so far, and I have so much further to go, is that like complete accountability. Like what I created was mine. Like I put myself in hell, right? It's a miracle that I made it out of hell, you know, but I get exactly what you're saying, man. Like, like the most boring people in the world are the most privileged people in the world, you know, like I've never really met a super interesting trust fund kid, right? Or somebody that I want to be around. Yeah. Like if I was in my addiction and they had a bunch of money in a big ass bag, that'd be my best friend, right? But now these days, no, not at all. You know, it's really interesting that way, man. You know, pressure, you know, diamonds are made under pressure, right? Not, you know, and like that's why I meet some of the most interesting, talented, funny, awesome people in Narcotics Anonymous, right? Like all these recovering addicts are amazing people, you know, miracles, you know, second chance, you know, third chance, fourth chance for some, you know.
There's something I was watching a movie and it had something about recovery in it, and the guy was doing amends. He was like going back to all the things he's done wrong and trying to make amends. Yeah. I find that the craziest thing ever.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? And so like so it's funny.
So making amends is like you're looking for forgiveness from people?
So in the step working process, which is funny too that you bring this up, because I got to this point with so I changed sponsors when I went to treatment this last time, right? And I got to this point with him. And then when I got out of treatment, I switched back to my old sponsor, right? And I've been really stagnant on my step work. So in a lot of ways, I haven't got a chance to make an amends to a lot of these people, right? So in the 8th step, you make an amends, you make an amends list, people that you've harmed, and how it's done and everything else,
so
right? And you go through like a complete inventory of your life. And then 9th step, you go and actually make an amends to these people. And it's not like, hey, Jesse, fucking robbed your car, dude, I'm sorry. All right, later. It's like, Jesse, I did A, B, and C. I was wrong. How can I make it better?
Yeah.
And whatever you fucking say, if you're like, dude, you owe me $1,000, that's how much it cost. I got to fucking come up with that money, right?
Really?
Oh, yeah. That's the amends process. At least with my sponsor, right? I'm fucking scared of this shit with him, right? And he'll say some shit like, he'd be like, what do I do? Go say sorry? He'll tell me, you've been sorry your whole life, you sorry motherfucker. What are you going to do about it, right? But, like, sorry ain't good enough, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so the one person the 3 people I've been able to make an amends to, through this process is Brandy, my significant other, right? And my amends to her is, number 1, changing my life and not repeating all these shitty behaviors that I had, right? Yeah. But number 2 is allowing her to chase her goal and doing whatever is necessary to, take care of the kids, do as much as I can around the house, cook, clean, whatever, and not bitch about it through the process, right? And I'm not perfect at it, right? And she's been chasing her education. She got her master's degree, and she's through her externship in another 5 weeks, and she'll begin it. And we're through this process, but that continues. That amends, it's a living amends, right? Yeah. So the difference between an amends, like, hey, Jesse, I fucked your shit up, and then you tell me what I got to do. And then there's a living amends, which is like some people, like if I had to make an amends to like my grandma who I fucking stole like some money out of her purse to go get a bag or some shit like that, I'd have to make a living amends to some of these people by just living a different way, the rest of my life, right? So there's different versions of making an amends, but it's not just I'm sorry. You can't get away with I'm sorry.
That's the most vulnerable shit I've ever heard. Like I'm looking back. I'm trying to look back at my life and see who I fucked over, and I don't know if I could ever just go up to them and say, hey, what can I do to make this right?
Well, that's where they say in the program that separates the men from the boys, right? And so I'm still a little boy, I guess. But like but it also says in there whether it's going to harm them or somebody else, right? So there's some shit you have to make indirect amends for, right? Yeah. Like I know people that have done stuff like they fucking robbed a store, right? And they can't go into the store and be like, hey, I fucking robbed this place, right? Yeah. So what they do is every time they get a chance, they go to that store and they buy something. They don't fucking need it, but they go in there and just buy it.
Yeah.
Maybe they give it away. Maybe they keep it, whatever it is, But there's all kinds of different ways to make it amends, right? And that's another reason you have somebody to guide you through this stuff. Because, like, a lot of times, like, left to my own devices, I fuck a lot of shit up, right? Like, I try to include God on as many decisions as I can. And that's new for me, too, right? Like, having a relationship with a God of my understanding that's not, judgmental. I'm not damned to hell. Like, all these things that I learned growing up of what a God is, what I learned from religion. Like, that's not what I think of as God today, right? Yeah. And so, like, I have to include him in on every day. That's why, like, you could tell... when I show up to the gym and I've already had my like morning time where I have a little prayer in me, a little meditation.
Every time I show up, you'll be there and like, hey, Jess, how's it going? Good morning. I'm like, fucking EJ, dude, it's 5:30 in the morning. How the hell are you so happy right now?
It's because I put God in my day, right? Yeah. Because sometimes I wake up and from my bed to my coffee pot, I've motherfucked like 4 people already in my head, thinking about some dirty ass shit I shouldn't be thinking about, right? And it's so important, like we talked, like I told you about the obsession, right? Those thoughts that can run wild through your day. And so that little meeting that I have with God in the morning puts all that shit out, right? Yeah. And I use that gym in the morning as my meditation, right? When I'm in there, I can't think of anything else but what I'm doing for that hour, right? So it's almost like a form of meditation. It clears my head and helps push me through the day. So with like those things all combined, I got a chance of having a pretty good day, Yeah. And the only one that can fuck it up is me usually.
I can fuck it up too.
Yeah. You've done it a couple times. There's been a few occasions where that's happened. Like the other morning, I pulled up to the house. I think it was on like Thursday morning. Or Friday morning. I looked in the mirror. I had dried blood coming out of my nose. I'm like, oh, that happened, right?
Fuck, dude. Recovery is such a crazy thing. And I think just through the pandemic, I'm barely realizing what it means. Because I haven't really told my wife, but my grandpa was an addict.
Yeah.
Like, he died with a needle in his arm, and on my dad's side, and they told me he died of a heart attack, and I found out years later. But I remember going to see him, like, he was homeless, like, and it didn't hit me till after I grew up, like, what he was going through.
Yeah.
And and now I'm realizing, okay, that's in my family, like addiction.
Yeah.
Is it genetic? Like,
I mean, some people think it is, right?
Yeah.
I believe it is. You know, I got addicts, you know, all throughout my family tree, you know, and a lot of people believe it's genetic. They believe it's something that you're born with, you know, but I mean, I don't think there's any scientific papers written on it, you know, but there's addicts everywhere, you know, like my sponsor always says, dude, like, recovery's for people that want it. If it was for people that needed it, we'd be having our meetings at fucking football stadiums, right? You know, that's it. Like, and he says that shit all the time, right?
Yeah.
And it's true, you know, and it's just, I mean, in this pandemic, right? It's like you were talking about, it highlights a lot of things in your life, because for the longest time, like, things are opening up now, but you're stuck with your fucking choices, right? Like, you're stuck with your significant other and your kids, you know, and yourself, right?
Yeah.
The scariest person in your life is yourself sometimes. A lot of people don't slow down long enough to actually look at themselves, you know? Like, you could be running around your whole life not knowing you hate the guy in the fucking mirror, you know? And then a lot of people in relationships, like, this pandemic's been the best and the worst thing that's ever happened to them, you know?
Yeah.
Because they're stuck at home with their significant other and their kids.
Oh, dude, I was scared when we first got locked down. I was scared. I was like, man, this is really gonna test my marriage.
Oh, hell yeah. Me and Brandy looked at each other like, do we even fucking like each other? Right? But then we started doing stuff around the house, and and thank God, right? Like, it's crazy. Me and her have been on this wild ride together. You know, we've been together over 11 years, and like, we love each other more than we ever did.
Yeah.
You know, and we understand each other and we're accepting of it. And we have feelings. Like, I don't think she liked me very much today, like, at a certain point in the day, but it don't matter, right? That passes.
Yeah.
Feelings aren't facts, right? That thing, you know, fades away and you come back to reality. But, you know, it's just, you find somebody you love, you know, if you truly love them, you don't give up on them no matter what, you know?
I think a lot of people, when they say no matter what, they like to make, like, they say, but if they do this, then I'm not going to be with them.
Yeah.
No, it's no matter what.
Yeah, but erases everything you just said. Like, if somebody says something, like, and you say but after, you may as well have not even said all that shit right before you said but. Just say the second part.
Yeah.
Right? That's but yeah, man, like, I got lucky though. I got a great woman. Like, fuck, dude, I can't believe she, like, I was telling my sister the other day.
You don't have to say that because we're recording.
Oh no, I say it all the time. I was telling my sister, I'm like, I can't even believe that she fucking loves me, right?
Yeah.
She loves me so much, and I love her too, right?
Yeah.
And that's some mushy ass stuff, right? but it's the truth, you know. It's like,
Yeah.
But I've learned to be vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
And like, even when you started the podcast off and you said something nice about me, right? That's the most uncomfortable shit for me. Like, somebody says something nice or compliments me, I just automatically go like this, like, must be talking about fucking that guy over there, you know. But I've changed. I've changed. You know, life's different today, right? So
there's a kid. His name's Gabe. He's a photographer, and he calls me the hype man, because I like to hype everybody up. It's something that I grew up with. Like, my mom would compliment everybody.
Yeah.
And my wife hates it because she's like, you just love everybody. And it's just, I don't see why I'm going to hate somebody unless you fucking try to stab me.
Yeah.
Then okay. And then I even might forgive you for that. Like,
yeah.
But it's just, it's kind of like, I like to see the good in everybody. And in the fight world, it's a hard thing to do, because like, in the fight world, you're literally trying to fight somebody across the ring, and it's a weird thing, because like, you're looking at him and you're like, I'm about to punch this guy in the face, but then you're telling yourself, but he's a cool motherfucker. Like, I want to fucking, it's a weird dynamic, right? I want to fuck this dude up, but I respect him if he goes all the rounds with me.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. Fighting's weird.
No, that's yeah. I mean, like I see it like because I've never been in like a legitimate like stand up competition, right?
Yeah.
But like to hug somebody afterwards, like even the grappling matches I was in, I don't want to hug you.
Yeah.
Like I think I'm weird that way. Like when it comes to competition, like there's a line drawn. Like even this guy that you're about to fight, I don't even know who he is. You're like, he's a super cool dude. I'm like, fuck that guy, right? Just because I'm on Team Jesse, I'm a line drawer, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But like I've always been that way. So like that's hard for me to understand. Like, you know, like how you talk about like the dude busted your nose and you guys are like buddies. I'm like, yeah, I couldn't be fucking buddies with that dude. You're a better man than I am in that way, right? Like I got a long way to go. I told you I'm not there yet. I'm not a finished product.
No, it's because even the last guy I fought, he came out like trying to be scary, and Raquel to this day, if we talk about that fight, she's like, fuck that motherfucker, like, you know what I mean, like,
Yeah.
And then me, it's like, I kind of just see it was like, I won, like there's nothing else that's better than just that. If someone's like trying to be a dick, but you still win, like what else are you gonna do? Fucking hate them?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like you won.
Well, and that's a good thing, like, because you don't have to carry that around.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, hate is like we talk, like resentments. Like, you carry those around. That's what makes you sick. You know,
Yeah.
it bogs down your life, you know, and be able to just go through life like that and letting things bounce off your back, like, that's huge.
Yeah.
You know, that's huge. Like we talk about, like, in recovery, the triangle of self-obsession, right? So that would be, like, resentment, right? The past tense would be resentment. The present is fear, or the present is like anger, and then the future would be fear, right? And then in recovery, the only way to amends that is to come to acceptance with your past, and then you have love in the present tense, and then hope for the future, right? So if you're walking around with no resentment, it allows you to live in the now. Like Coach was talking about, like being in the moment, right?
Yeah.
If you're carrying around all these fucking resentments, if you're living in yesterday, you can't enjoy today, and you for sure aren't looking forward till tomorrow. You know, like being, and that's what I like so much about that gym too. Like it forces you to be right in that moment. If you're not in that moment, you're gonna get punched in the head or something. It's pretty, you know, the consequences are right in front of you, you know. Yeah.
And I think I take that back. I'm not always the happiest person and love everybody. The other day I got my ass whipped by somebody, and you know, like I got my ass whipped by him, and I was like heated, right? Yeah. So it's just, I don't know. It just depends on the moment. Like I was out of the moment on that. I was out of the moment because I'm still thinking about it, and then I had to come to terms and like, hey, dude, it's over. Get past it, because that dude's not even thinking of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're carrying him around. You may as well be in that chair right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that happens. I mean, we're human.
Yeah.
You know, and like that's the awesome thing about being human is you get to learn from all of this stuff, you know. And like in your profession, you know, like every choice you make has a real life fucking consequence. You know, it's not like it's not going to happen, right? Like if you decide to you know, I got this fight coming, I'm not going to run, right? Yeah, like those choices have consequences, you know? Like even when today during that meeting, I'm listening to all the shit you guys got to do, you know, and I'm like, oh, it sounds horrible.
It's fun.
Yeah.
I could either do that or go back to FedEx and drive.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you found the perfect spot for yourself, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I'll give you a compliment. Like, I look forward to seeing you every morning, right? I look forward to that because you have a great attitude and it brings something to me, right? Like you and Coach Amber, like, give something to my family that like, it's a bonding that we haven't had, right? And me and both of my girls are in there and we get to enjoy that together. And you guys are giving us this gift, right? And it's a beautiful thing because my kids are going to have that forever, you know, and it's awesome. You know, and I get to watch my daughter compete. Like, to connect with a 13-year-old girl on that level, like, it's awesome.
Wait until 15.
Oh, she don't like me already.
You know what's so crazy is that a lot, when like 10 years from now, people are going to look back as like, man, that was a shitty time. But then for some of us, this is a good ass time.
Yeah.
Dude.
Oh, heck yeah. Hey, the pandemic was good for me, man.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, of course, there's a lot of hardships and everything else, but everything good has hardship.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, man, I found that gym. I've gotten healthier. My family's bonded tighter together. Like, all kinds of positive things have happened, you know.
Fuck yeah.
But, you know, it's life's interesting, man. That's what, like, you just never know where you're going to be. You know, I never thought I was ever going to train a martial art again or do anything like that, and I'm loving it, you know.
The first day I stepped into a boxing gym, right? He put me on it was Dreamland Boxing. He put me on a big tire, and he just had me go forward and back for a week. And then I go from there to now coach having me run the MMA program at Strike. It's fucking crazy.
Yeah. Well, it's perfect, dude. Like, you guys have such a great attitude, and they're like, you can just feel the vibe in the gym, right? Like, like when I'm sitting there and my kids are participating, I'm sitting there thinking, like, I got to be a part of this. You know, this is awesome, right?
Yeah.
You know, and it's just a great environment. You know what they've created over there and what you're part of. You know, I like all you guys that, like your sister and all the people that have been there since the beginning. Like, you guys are that gym. Like, it's something like, of course, Amber and Ben were the catalyst, but you guys are like their first generation, right? Like the babies. And like I was explaining to my daughter, I'm like, you don't understand how lucky you are. Like, you're in such a sweet spot. Like, you came in right after all the really, really hard work was done, and you just get to learn, you know. It's awesome, you know. But
it's crazy because you guys see that, and me and my sister are like, we're just doing the same shit we've done every day.
Yeah.
For the last 2 years.
Well, and that's what makes it good.
Yeah.
You know, is the humility that you guys bring to it. You know, everybody in there.
Yeah.
You know, there's no egos. Everybody checks that shit at the door. And it's a great place to be and learn and grow, you know. Like, for me, it's doing tremendous things. Like, that is like my mental health outlet, is that gym, you know.
I think it's a lot of people.
Yeah, and it's so much so that I have to check myself, you know, because I still have to, you know, keep my recovery as my top priority. But my obsessive personality, you know, has me in there like I'm trying to be a Muay Thai champion or something.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just gonna be hopefully the father of a Muay Thai fighter.
Man, I didn't even get to talk. Oh, we're already at an hour, but I mean, because your daughter's great grandpa is a Hall of Famer.
Yeah. How about that, right?
Yeah.
Well, I don't
NFL
know
Hall
how.
of Famer.
So he's like her, would be my daughter's great grandfather's like cousin or brother, but they got that Van Brocklin genetic, right? We're tied to Norm Van Brocklin.
Yeah.
That side of the family, like, I'm not sure how everything weaves together, like, because Brandy's dad passed away like 15 years ago, right? Yeah. And so we still hang out with the aunts, and then her grandma just passed away, so like we didn't get together this last Christmas and things like that. But yeah, they got good, like, so like Ava's genetics, like her athleticism and stuff, you know, because she's, you know, not biologically mine, right?
Yeah.
Comes from that side, right? And then you see my genetics and Emma.
I told you too. I was like, man, she for sure didn't get your athleticism.
Yeah, before you even knew, right?
Yeah.
And so Emma's more me. Emma's gonna have to be more of the hard work, right?
Yeah.
Dedication. Where Ava, you know, things come easier to her, but what's going to be interesting is seeing, you know, like now, like especially now she's got all this homework for training, how that manifests and how she does with that, right?
Yeah.
That's going to be the interesting part. She can go, like I've told that girl, you know, a bazillion different times, you can go as far as you want athletically, you know, and as far as anything, she's a brilliant kid, you know, and she's so athletically gifted. It's just how much work do you want to put in, right?
Yeah.
Is going to determine how far she goes in life, you know. And my job as a dad is putting the best people in her life, right? Like she has an amazing soccer coach, right? And now she has you guys as mentors over there. So like I feel like I have her in the sweetest spot, like coming into the most difficult part of her life, right? And so I feel like I'm doing my job.
Some 15-year-old boy is going to walk in with baggy pants and with his hat backwards, and he's gonna be like, I'm Ava's boyfriend.
I already told her, hey, be careful with your choices, because there's two reasons in this world your dad will go to prison for the rest of his life, and it's you and your sister. So don't make me do something I'll regret, right?
Yeah. That's like my worst fear is my daughter to end up getting with some boy that I just fucking hate.
Yeah. My worst fear is my daughter showing up with a younger version of me.
Oh.
That scares me, right?
But there's a reason why, like, I barely know you. I let you in my house, like, to do the podcast. And a lot of it has to do with, I always tell my wife, like, our kids are a representation of us. And your kids are amazing, man. Like I told you from the get-go. And I know you get all weird about compliments, but like I'm not gonna just. I barely met you a few months ago, and like I invited you to my house, and I just Strike has some good people, and you're one of them, and I can't wait to see what your daughters do. I can't wait to see what you do in Muay Thai.
Oh boy,
world champion one day, 45-year-old world champion.
John Wayne Parr. Watch out.
But thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing, for being open too.
Yeah.
And yeah, thank you guys for www. What's the flower shop called?
LosBanosFlowers.com.
Let's say it on the mic. Say it in the mic.
www.LosBanosFlowers.com. Boom. That's what I was trying to give it to the camera.
Yeah, but you guys, EJ makes the flowers. He does it all by hand. Him and his employees. And they're here in Los Banos. And so go check them out if you guys need flowers to make up to your wife. I'm probably going to have to go there a few times. But thank you for listening. And I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. Love you guys. Peace.
We have an example.
Oh, yeah. I have an example right here.
Oh, they're dead.
Okay. Well,
They look good still.
they look good still. So these we've had these for about a few days now. And they're for my daughter. But EJ didn't even know that we got them sent over here. Who sent them?
Eva's godmother sent them.
My daughter's godmother sent her for her birthday.
Yeah, they've been here over a week.
Yeah. So they're more bright. Yeah. They're brighter than you. Way to go. But yeah. So if you guys need flowers, check them out, guys. Love you. Peace.